Hello, welcome back to the Environmental Podcast. On this week's episode, we are diving into the future of fashion on the fourth episode of our fashion series.
So we've talked history, we've talked modern sustainability issues, we've talked design, and today I think is going to be a super uplifting episode.
Indeed, especially after last week's episode, which was the most doom, the most gloom, as I put it.
Did you put it like that?
Yeah, I did.
Definitely one of the most depressing hour-long conversations of my life. There's still obviously other episodes we can do, which can probably
Top that.
which can probably top that, but this one won't even attempt. We're just going to be talking fun stuff. We're talking about brands. We're talking about how to build a sustainable wardrobe.
Yeah, some cool innovations that are inspiring us in the fashion industry. Let's maybe recap, why did we decide to do a fashion series, Aaron?
Well, we're both kind of, you're really into fashion, let's put it like that. You're really into clothes.
I am. I'm
You
into
like to
clothes.
dress. You have a lot of clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to get more fashion because I feel inadequate.
Okay, there we go.
So I bought some big pants. But the real reason is that fashion's like one of the biggest emitters, right?
It is. It's this one of the second leading contributor to climate change. Clothing is also just really important to us. Like, it's how we define ourselves. So if we're dressing sustainably, we'll maybe define ourselves sustainably, and that'll lead to a better world.
It's the perfect intersection of art and industry.
Very well put. So do you want to start off with just a few case studies?
Are we talking brands?
Brands, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So the first one that I kind of got into was Everlane, because I feel like a lot of people know about this brand now, or at least people in the sustainability circle, because they did a very good job of marketing themselves. They're accessible in terms of pricing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not cheap because they want to, I think part of their mission statement is to make people invest in their clothing.
Can we talk about what accessible in terms of pricing means? You have some items, like how much is a t-shirt?
An Everlane t-shirt is like $18 US.
Okay.
So it's not like cheap.
No.
Because it's not cheaply made. Well, that's debatable, but it's not like an H&M t-shirt, which you can get for $2.
Okay.
They're usually 18 is like the lowest end. And I was really convinced that Everlane was an ethical and sustainable brand. So that's why I picked it as my first case study, and then I started getting into it, and it's not. They're not.
You felt betrayed.
I felt betrayed. I kind of exclaimed that. You were in the kitchen and I was in the dining room studying, and then I was just like, I'm betrayed or something.
I think you did say almost, I think you said literally that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they did such a good job of greenwashing their label that.
Can we explain what greenwashing is, just for the people who don't know?
So greenwashing is basically when a brand puts its marketing budget into making themselves seem like they do sustainable things. So maybe they call their sweaters the Renew Fleece. That's exactly what Everlane does. And the thing is, Everlane does good in, they make their clothes out of, reused water bottles. They use organic cotton, and they have this sneaker which is entirely recyclable, and they encourage you to use it until you absolutely can't anymore, then send it back, they'll recycle it and turn it into new shoes.
So the materials are good, in other words.
Yeah, but they also don't reduce their water usage along the way. I believe they don't try and use fewer chemicals. They use all of the traditional processes, and the factories where their clothes are made are the same places that Nike makes their clothes, and all of the sustainable lines from H&M and stuff are also made. So they're not actually that different. They're actually ranked lower than H&M on the Good On You ranking, which is kind of what a lot of people refer to.
Okay.
The reason I wanted to bring up Everlane, though, is in comparison to H&M, I feel like they're better because they don't promote fast fashion. What do you think of that? Do you think the effort is still, what would you say?
Yeah, commendable.
Yeah.
Commendable, no, because it sounds like it's just to make money
Mm-hmm.
by positioning themselves in the sustainability niche. Effective, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do think that brands, even if they're lying, people are influenced by what they say.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're like, hey, time to heal the earth, look at these pictures of nature or whatever, I do think that helps. It's obviously always just a shame to learn that they might not be backing up those actions. It's very similar to political parties, I think.
Yeah.
It's like when like Canada has a Liberal Party, which is kind of says a lot of nice things about the environment, but isn't in
Doing that.
fact environmental. I still think that's better than just not saying anything at all.
Yeah, because a lot of the sources I go to learn about sustainable fashion, they always are sponsored by Everlane. And I think even if they're maybe not,
Wait, what do you mean by that? Sorry.
like, people get a commission on the sales made through like their affiliate link. So like on their website, they would have a blog about sustainable fashion. They'd say this is sponsored by Everlane. If you go and buy their clothes, 25% of the profit goes to the person.
So basically, paying people to say nice things about the brand
Yeah,
and its sustainability.
but it's almost always linked with sustainability, and I think they're sponsoring that message, so at least there's a little bit of good
At
in
least
it.
they're involved.
At least they're involved, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a whole post I'm gonna make about ranking brands, like the really common ones, so Everlane, Levi's, H&M, so on. So I'm gonna not talk about those today, just because I'm gonna talk about them in that post and have done a lot of research already
Okay.
about that. So yeah.
So if you want to see that post, which will be a very detailed breakdown of all these brands, check us out on Instagram at @the_environmental.
Yeah. So what's your first case study, Aaron?
I picked 3 brands.
I did as well. That was just my first.
Okay, good. The first one that I think I want to talk about, I kind of picked one which is just a common brand. It just came to mind. One which is like a super cheap entry-level brand, because I thought that would be very interesting. It's like a huge corporation.
Yeah.
And one which I just found online after looking for environmental brands.
Yeah, mine's pretty much the same.
So I'll go for the environmental one first, I guess, which was called 4 Days. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
FOR days, like for days.
Yeah.
Referring to the length of time that they want you to wear their products, for days.
Cool.
So for like a really long time.
Love that.
And the website is very, very cool. It's very, wear this as long as you can, patch it, draw on it, wear it in all weathers. So I guess that's the opposite of fast fashion, right?
Yeah.
Would you call that slow fashion or something?
Slow fashion, yeah.
And the reason I chose them is because they have a 100% closed loop. So they have basically a swap program where you buy a product. Let's say you buy a t-shirt from 4 Days. Oh, and all their clothes are organic as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're called like organic basics. That seems to be a very commonly used term.
There's a brand called Organic Basics, who is like Everlane in that they sponsor everyone, but Organic Basics is actually ranked very good on their ethics and sustainability.
Anyway, 4 Days is unaffiliated with them, but they too have Organic Basics.
Organic Basics, nice.
And yeah, so you buy a product from them and then you wear it as much as you can, and then you just send it back and they will send you back something else.
That's awesome.
Or the same thing. It's a swap program basically. Yeah. And you don't have to pay for the swap except for the shipping.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because that's a closed loop, right? So that's we're like, okay, cool. So, and all the products that you send back, they don't kind of clean up and resell. It's all recycled.
Okay.
And I asked you, hey, do you know how fabrics are recycled? And you said no.
Now I do.
So I looked it up, and they shred fabrics, right?
Yes.
Let me see. So they sort them into different fabrics, shred them / pull them into the fibers, process them, clean them, and then respin them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of intuitive, I guess. But when I picture recycling, I always picture things being melted down into a huge vat and then reshaped. But you can't melt clothes, so.
Yeah. Polyester. They melt it and they respin it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I read an interview about someone who was working in the fashion industry in like the 70s, and their boss was really excited because they just developed this 100% polyester jacket, and the guy was like, who would want to wear 100% polyester? But now we all do that.
Especially after we just watched Saturday Night Fever a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, a lot of polyester there.
Yeah, a lot of 70s polyester jackets in that movie. Great looking ones as well.
I suppose.
So yeah, for days. I wanted to talk about that because I know that you did a lot of kind of investigative journalism with regards to all your brands, like fact checking all their claims.
Yeah.
I didn't go that far. I just kind of tried to read between the lines on their websites and use like critical reading or whatever. But they said all materials are recycled, and yet they said that all their fabric comes from Turkey, even though it's all made in the USA, like sewn and put together in the USA.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, so they can still be marked down for all that shipping.
Yeah.
Like that still takes a lot, like the transport, as well as the fact that, okay, it's a swap program, so that's cool, but you're also sending your clothes back and forth.
Yes.
Which isn't good, and probably doing it pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think that brand's really cool though, because you can make an investment. Like, I'd pay $200 for like something from them.
It's basically a subscription, right?
Yeah.
It's very cool.
It is.
The reason I wanted to mention it is because I do think this kind of membership program, discounts, swaps, like things like that, could come hand in hand with a closed loop recycling donation bin thing.
Yeah, you could like subscribe to a brand.
I really think that would incentivize more kind of environmental, like it's kind of participatory on the behalf of the buyer, right? Like you feel like it's not just a shirt that you have from for days. It's like, yeah, I'm a
part of that.
Yeah, like it feels a little bit more
I like
close
that a lot.
close to the production. So that's why I wanted to mention that, because that just makes me think a lot about future stuff.
There's so much. This episode, like while I was preparing for it, I was like, we could make a whole series just on this.
And Patagonia's like that as well, right?
Yeah, Patagonia is one of my companies. It wasn't gonna be, but then they're just so good.
Yeah, you like, why look past it?
Yeah. So yeah, maybe I can just start in on Patagonia.
Yeah, sure.
So Patagonia is this American company. It's all with like activewear and stuff, and they are really good on ethics and sustainability. I mean, you go on their website, like they had this whole ad campaign that was like, it was a picture of one of their jackets and it was like, don't buy this. And that's very like reverse engineering, kind of like, it's going to make people want to buy it, obviously. But that's kind of their thing. It's like, only buy this if you need it. They will repair it for free. If at the end of the life you can turn it in, you don't get the full money back, or like the product replaced, but you still get a store credit.
Yeah.
And I found there's this website called Wornwear, and it's a Patagonia website, but they like re-sew their clothes that have been turned into like these really cool looking garments. And it's just a really cool website, and it also has tips on how to wash, how to repair your clothing, how to repair your gear, because Patagonia also sells like hiking gear and such. It's just really cool. And they also use 100% organic cotton, which uses less water. 56% of their products are Blue Sign certified. I didn't know what that was, and then I looked into it, and it's a harmful substance elimination program. It's like 56% of their products use no harmful substances at all.
I guess that's important for them because, like you said, they make hiking gear and tents and packing bags and stuff, which probably always use a lot of bad plastics.
Yeah, and like all their polyester, nylon, and wool are recycled. So that's good, because those are all resource intensive, but they just use the recycled versions of them. Yeah,
if you guys are interested in listening to us talk a little bit more about polyester, nylon, cotton, wool, and like the impacts of different materials, listen to last week's episode where we go in depth on those. One thing, or probably the biggest thing I find impressive about Patagonia, they're kind of easy to hate because everyone wears them, so it's easy to get kind of tired of them, but they, as you said, like they just are like the best big company. But what's impressive to me is that most other environmental brands you'll find online are pretty small. Patagonia is huge, and they're just as, if not more, dedicated to it than a lot of smaller brands. And they're successful because of that. Like, they're successful because of their ethics, which I think is almost unique. Probably in fashion, certainly. But yeah, big inspiration.
I think so. And the website, good on you, that I was reading all of the, like, they did a lot of the investigation, that I still went above and beyond, because they were, like, marking down Everlane. And they also didn't give Patagonia the highest rating, but I would kind of give them the highest rating. For
big companies, I would say definitely, but there's probably, like, it's just easier when you're smaller.
Yeah, exactly. And you can, like, Patagonia's just so good. They're ranked, like, second highest in, like, the ethics as well. It's like they treat all their employees at all levels of the production chain well.
They have a great website.
They do.
It's not just clothes, right? They have articles, sciencey stuff.
Yeah. You open activism. It up and it's an article about Black Lives Matter. And then, like, you can't get to the clothes very easily. It's, like, all about different climate change issues, basically, and social justice issues.
They kind of have more of a Greenpeace-y presence than Greenpeace does. Yeah. I think.
Very good.
Greenpeace is not on college campuses.
No.
Like, Patagonia is the only kind of big environmental brand.
You're right.
I guess there's Tesla, but that has its own issues. Whereas Patagonia, I don't know, I feel like it's very idyllic, kind of like the Apple of clothes.
Yeah, I think so.
And that pragmatism, as in they don't just make clothes, like they actually do try and outfit you for an active lifestyle.
Yeah.
And one which is on the land, kind of. I think we can talk about that a little bit later, but that's something which I think other brands can also take inspiration from. What do you want to dress people for? I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, that is.
When it comes to making clothes.
Doing this research, I came across like hundreds of these really cool tiny websites and companies, and they often all had this like, we want to outfit you for the world, but also like make these clothes multifunctional.
Yeah.
And there's just so many cool ones. I always thought they'd be crazy expensive because they were small and because they were sustainable and ethical. And that's why I kind of always gravitated towards Everlane. But then it's like they're not that much more expensive than Everlane. A lot of these ones, especially if you're using recycled materials.
Yeah, shop smart, shop sales. It's kind of the usual advice I'd give to people. This kind of goes nicely into the next company I want to talk about, which is Gildan, which is the biggest. What would you say? Like basics, but not organic. Inorganic basics.
Yes.
Just like the clothes that you buy in bulk. Like if you're buying bulk t-shirts, they'll be Gildan.
Yeah, like if your school has a track and field team and they're making you t-shirts, they're Gildan.
If you're going to an event and there's like custom t-shirts, they're probably Gildan or hoodies.
Yeah.
Because they're just the cheapest. So they must be incredibly mass produced. They're all just kind of a basic heavy spun cotton.
Yes.
But I wanted to look into their environmentalism because of that. I thought that was really interesting because I was like, these guys must have huge infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously just like a huge kind of omniscience all throughout North America. Anyway, I know it's a Canadian brand. I know it's just as big in America as it is in Canada. I'm not sure about the rest of its kind of global presence.
Mm-hmm.
Other continental countries probably all have their own version of Gildan.
Yeah, I think so.
But they actually surprised me going through their website with all that talk of environmentalism. I figured they would basically not mention it, but they had huge, like, elaborate sustainability reports and stuff about this is how we're reusing energy, this is how we're capturing materials which we use to steam things, and like it's getting more efficient every year. We had this percentage drop in greenhouse gas emissions last year, this percentage drop in electricity. Like, it was super thorough. And then they had goals as well, and I looked more into it, and several people were kind of casting doubts on that, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't believe it wholeheartedly. Anytime a company does stuff like that, I was pleased that they were mentioning it. They didn't really go into the cotton, like the actual materials. It was more about manufacturing, electricity use, and their goals for the future. As we mentioned last week, cotton is pretty much bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's super water intensive and takes a lot to dye as well. Like,
also
to grow
pesticides.
And to dye, and takes a lot of pesticides.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of skirted around that because it was like, well, there's no way to change our materials, but look at all this other stuff we're doing.
I found that with every brand I've looked into, they've all kind of avoided one topic. So Everlane, it's the production. Nike, it was like the materials. Like, it's just all, they kind of avoid this one thing, which is probably their like Achilles heel environmentally or ethically.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that Patagonia had points taken off was because they don't have on their website like a pledge to reduce.
That's silly.
And I was like,
it's because they're walking the walk.
They're just doing it. Like, they don't need to have these pledges. Like, they're gonna be carbon neutral, but they don't actually have a date set. And I'm like, it's probably because they're just literally trying to go as fast as possible. Like, they're just good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patagonia's PR is the best kind of PR, which is watch us do it.
Yeah.
Like, here's some articles of what we're doing. That's the best kind, rather than just kind of these empty words.
Yes.
Which I feel like Gildan probably has a lot of. Yeah, two things I found inspiring, which was the huge size of the company and the infrastructure involved with it.
Yeah.
As well as in these sustainability reports, I felt like it was a little bit more technical than most. A lot of numbers, a lot of like chemical names and stuff.
That's good.
And details into the production, which I kind of skimmed over, but which I thought were fascinating. I think sustainability, especially when it's on such a big scale, does have more of a kind of mathematic engineering slant to it. Like, it is very technical like that. It is,
yeah.
And I think that can be kind of like the aesthetic.
I think so.
Regarding the size of the company, it reminded me a lot of before Kanye kind of went off the deep end, I would say, over the last couple of years. He would always talk about infrastructure and making design, and he called it luxury, accessible to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of trying to eliminate bullying. And I know that sounds silly when his own clothes are priced so inordinately, but if you just ignore that, the words are pretty noble.
I think so.
Like, it's a very noble goal, and even ignoring the fact about design or just like coolness, if you could just make sustainability like that, like if you had that goal, then I think companies like Gildan start to look at them differently, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think
Like,
so.
he always talked about partnering with Payless, and now like partnering with Gap, just like these super entry level, very common or very widespread companies, very accessible, because too often, as people are priced out of cool things, people are priced out of sustainable things.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned, okay, the Everlane t-shirt's only $18, but it's like, for a lot of people, that's a lot of money. And I know we could say they could buy fewer t-shirts and things, and you could have smarter like buying practices.
Yeah.
But maybe until that's a very common thing,
Mindset,
I think if we could just flip companies like Gildan, make them green.
Yeah.
Use that like existing infrastructure. I don't know, I find that very inspiring.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Like, as I was on the H&M website as well, it was really, really hard to discern. I was getting like this cartoonish, like, wow, what's going on? Like, trying to like read through the website and understand the sustainability of it, because probably like 60% of their products are in their conscious line. And the reason I got to this was because I was on this website of a company who's making silk out of orange peels, and the two brands they partnered with was this super, super luxury brand, and then H&M, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, H&M's making their clothes out of orange peels, and then they just are. And I was like, I would never trust a conscious piece of clothing from H&M, and it's probably because they also, like, they haven't stopped pushing fast fashion, and they also have all these sketchy, like, ethics. But I was like, if they could just flip, that'd be kind of awesome, and like start,
because they're already there, right? They're already
yeah,
huge. You don't have to grow it from a fledgling.
And they have like these economies of scale where they could make it affordable. They get all the orange peels, they make all their clothes out of orange peels, and then they just also offer repairs, and they offer like replacements and stuff. They just need to change their
Business
like
model?
setup, their business model. Yeah.
Yeah. The quick turnover.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that strategy. I don't remember if we learned it in class or just on our own a couple years ago. I don't even remember the company, but there was a dude who was super environmental who got on the board of like an oil company, and I told you about that, and you were like, oh yeah, that's a tactic.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
It reminds me a little bit of that when we're talking about these huge companies, not in terms of, oh man, look how much Gildan pollutes, blah, blah, but in terms of the opportunities they offer.
Yeah.
For rapid.
It's like all the sustainability kids we need to buy shares in H&M. That's what it is, and then you're on the board, like you're the owners of it, like you own it.
Yeah.
Because all of these companies are publicly traded, so like we can.
Gildan is. It had its stock right on the front page.
Weird. I don't understand stocks really, but
because Gildan isn't really a fashion company.
No, it isn't. It's just like a manufacturing.
But if you could turn it, okay, this is going way off the deep end. In episode 1, in episode 1 of the fashion series, we talked about like, is fashion art? And we said when it becomes on such a wide scale and it's not designed per se, then it's not really art anymore. It's more of a product. And Gildan's like the epitome of that, which is what I find interesting. And we never concluded, does fashion have to be art? Because some people just don't care about dressing, which is fine. Like, some people it's just about what's cheap, what will last, and what fits.
Yes.
And I thought with Gildan, like it's not a fashion company at all. It could become something like a humanitarian thing. Like, they have such a scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That like ideas like that.
Just like dressing people.
Are interesting. Yeah.
I think I've said that before on this series. So like these companies their motto needs to become like dressing people.
Dressing people is a great. It's like feeding people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome.
I'm gonna hop into my last company.
Okay.
So I picked this one. It's a smaller company. It's called Asket, and it's a European company, and their goal is total transparency. It was just run by these guys. It's only a like traditionally male, like all their sizing's male, and it's like
it's menswear.
Menswear, yeah.
Okay.
And so every single product they have, it says percent transparency basically. So a lot of their products are 100% transparent. So they know literally the exact location of the cotton field all the way up to where it was manufactured, sold, everything like that.
That's awesome.
And that's their only goal, is to become traceable for all their products. But they still can't even do it. Like some of their things are only 50%. That's their lowest. Like, so they're doing better than most companies.
50% traceable, do you mean?
Yeah. It's like they just don't know where some of the stuff is coming from. And that kind of blows my mind. And they're still only a small company. But I think that's just kind of speaks to how hard it might be.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, or not a lot, but some products come out of these places that are like war-torn, and
of course
there's no way to trace
no
them.
paper trail. It's like a product of globalization, really.
Mm-hmm. And that brings me into this innovation called blockchain, which is like really closely associated with Bitcoin. So it's this subscription, I believe, to this database. And so you would essentially give these bags to the people producing your cotton. You would like give them to a specific farm, and you'd say, okay, put it in here. And then this like little tag would go with it, this chip would go with it its whole lifespan, then it would be traceable. And it's not hackable, it's just like this really secure database.
It's kind of like marked bills. Banks use them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like even then, some brands are trying to use blockchain to track their clothing. It's also really common with diamonds and the metals used for producing like laptops and batteries and stuff. But they get sold in the black market, and then you just don't know where your stuff is. Or like, yeah, it's just so twisted and like complex.
That's a really cool case study.
Yeah.
So basically there's this, I'm guessing it's a pretty small company.
Yeah.
Not tiny, but...
It's not tiny, no.
No. So there's a company which started up probably sometime in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Of people who wanted to be sustainable, I'm guessing, traceable, transparent, and really counter to this mess of a supply chain, which is Nike,
mm-hmm.
H&M, etc. And they couldn't do it.
No.
So I guess the question is, how do we get it to a point where they can do it?
Or like what's the word? Should they do it? Like, if you can't trace it, should you even be making clothes? I don't know.
That's a good question.
Like, should we be... I don't think we should be exporting as much as we do. Or, like, importing. It should just be more local.
Of course.
And obviously there's places that, like, cotton can't grow. But it's like, then use the crops that can grow there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like just because we can, should we? Like, yeah. But they're a really cool company. You should check them out. Read their story. They have a whole, I think it's a feature-length documentary on, like, traceability of clothing.
Love that.
Yeah. And that's what, when you open up their website, that's what it says. And I'm going to do one more shout out before I let you take over. So there's this blog, which I think I might have talked about on the first website, or the first episode, and it's called Epochs. It's just the coolest, most dopest website on the internet. And it's about fashion. It's what got me interested in fashion. Well, it's not what got me interested, but it's what legitimized my interest in fashion and made me think I can make an impact while also kind of pursuing this passion of mine. And it's called Epochs. Check it out. But they now have that website shut down in 2017. But during Corona, the gang who like designed it and wrote it got back together, and they have this website called... Oh, my brain is blanked. It's called Typical Contents, and that's where I found this brand. And they just rank like the most basic things on their sustainability and like their durability. And so like right now there's probably 6 articles, and it's like boxers, white t-shirts, sneakers, rain jacket. It's just a really cool website, and I want people to like... We're going to get into this at the end when we talk about like building your own wardrobe, but you need to like research your things. We have access to the internet, so like research what you're buying and research your fashion taste. Anyway, Aaron?
Good recommendation. Good stuff. So everyone go check out that blog. This leads to like the big question which I had for this episode when I was preparing, which is, how do we hold these corporations accountable to their sustainability goals, you know, to make sure it isn't just greenwashing? I'll just quickly mention my last brand. I really didn't have much on it. I just chose Lululemon just off the top of my head.
No, that's a good one.
Because I felt that their marketing is very much towards the kind of people who would typically be interested in environmental sustainability of their clothes.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, yoga people. It's kind of like, I feel like they use the word holistic on their website. Yeah. It's a lot about peace and love and all that kind of stuff. It's very bougie.
Lululemon is, yes.
I think I said that right.
It's a bit bougie.
A bit?
Yeah.
Okay. And their website has like a big section for the environmentalism. It has big goals like 100% renewable electricity in all their facilities by 2021, a 60% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in both their facilities and their supply chain by 2030. But like a whole half of their environmental thing on their website, like there were two options to click. It was like our facilities or the supply chain. And when you click our facilities, it's very like nice goals like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really go into detail about how. And when you click supply chain, it's very much like, well, we try to hold our sources accountable to this certification and this standard and stuff like that. And it just seems like a lot of big companies place a lot of blame on their supply chain.
They all do.
I didn't really believe a lot of stuff Lululemon said, because just a quick Google search said that like most of their materials are not very eco-friendly at all.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because they're all so stretchy.
Yeah.
Unless they're coming from orange peels, which I doubt it.
Yeah, or if they're being recycled.
Yeah, a lot of blame placed on the supply chain, which makes sense, as you just mentioned with Asket. It's pretty much impossible to know. It just seems to me that that's something you can forgive Asket for, but when it comes to like a huge company, I just think they should be held more accountable. One, to know what's going on. Two, to like be in charge of it. Like you can't just say, well, yeah, we sourced our materials from here and we told them to be sustainable, but they weren't.
Yeah.
And I think they often kind of feign ignorance. I think they feign as if they have no say over it. When in fact they're likely the ones that are financing like the whole operations when you think about it.
Exactly.
And it's not like it's not doable to kind of be more in control over the supply chain. It's not a fashion company.
They have the money to do it.
Yeah, they have the money. I already mentioned Apple, and in every like Apple keynote they make a big deal about how they manufacture like everything now in their own products. So I think once a company gets big enough, it's like that should be almost like, it can't be a requirement, but that should be something. There should be some kind of pressure for them to be more in control about what's making their products.
Yeah. I feel like the only way you can do that is either like lobbying them, saying you need like just informing them that it's a concern of buyers.
Yeah.
Or boycotts, I guess is the only other option.
Well,
and I feel like that's worked really well with some companies.
Do you think?
Like, not really well, temporarily at least. Like, in the early 2000s, Nike was under a lot of fire for like using slave labor, and everyone boycotted Nike. And then they like cleaned up their supply chain, and like it was proven like they weren't using sweatshops anymore. But then now they're like getting back to using exploitative labor, but it's just like kind of a case study, like it works at least temporarily.
Yeah. Here was my idea.
Okay.
Because I remember, I'm never going to forget this. There was like a feature in a movie a few years ago, sustainable documentary, about a guy who made an app in China where you could track every energy plant.
Yeah.
And its emissions.
Yeah.
And it's like the app was free, like anyone could just download it and track it. So there's this question of how do you hold the big corporations accountable? And I think, like, my idea is there should just be like a genuine government agency task force, which is in charge of that. Like, that's their job, is to make sure that especially the big companies like are doing that, and like it should be a legal requirement.
Yeah, like you shouldn't be allowed to import something if it was made with the hands of children. Like if it wasn't made to the standards of your country, shouldn't be imported. There
should be definite emissions and ethics legal standards held by the governments. I think it becomes a bit tricky when it comes to offshore labor and stuff, because it's like whose jurisdiction is this? And I think that's why companies do it a lot, so they can basically hide from the law.
Yeah. It's also a worry, like, if America stopped importing, like, there's some countries that would just be screwed because they would have no income.
Yeah.
But it's like, just be sensitive to that. Give them money to invest in infrastructure and education instead of investing in the production of these products.
It's basically, there should be this whole incorporated thing by different industries, different companies, and the government involving things like cap and trade, as well as regulations like this. And I was thinking, you mentioned that Patagonia had a 56%
Blue Sign
certified, and you didn't really know what that was?
Yeah.
Is that in any way government affiliated?
No, it's just like a blue sign. It's like LEED.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be a government authenticated version of LEED.
Yeah.
Like LEED certification is for sustainable architecture and buildings. I think corporations should just have that. Or like there's the fair trade label on foods. I think there should be things like that, transparent things like that.
And just like if everything was marked with the impact, like its full impact, at least people would be confronted with it.
Imagine if when you got your t-shirt, either you ordered it online or you got it in store.
Yeah.
It came with some kind of chip which you could put into your PC or check online, and you could see literally where every thread of it came from, where it was made, things like that.
There's a brand doing that.
Okay.
Well, it's a tech company called circular.fashion, and they basically have designed this. It's like a label, like it just feels like a shirt label.
Yeah.
But it like tracks it, and then
so
it like tracks for the producers as well, so
like
it helps
a QR
them.
code.
Yeah. So it helps the producers know where their stuff came from, and it then when the customers buy it, they download this app and they like scan their shirt or whatever, and then when they're done with it, they have options to either like sell it to another person on the app, recycle it, repair it, like, or send it back. And then once it returns at the facility, all of the chips have like the information about what type of material it is to make the sorting really easy. It's a really cool technology. It's hard for me to explain, but it creates a circular economy.
Sounds very neat.
Yeah, no big brands are using it yet, just these really small ones. But I think it'd be easy to incorporate.
I should mention that this isn't like the ideal dream.
No.
That clothes need to come with a chip where you can see around the world where it was made.
Yeah, this isn't the goal.
This is kind of some kind of stopgap, solution to the current mess which has come from globalized supply chains, I think.
Yeah, the real goal is just local production. Yeah. Because everyone, like, I want to say obviously, but like we have the technology to grow crops basically anywhere in the world. So if you had to produce, at least not like shipping your stuff halfway across the world, just shipping it a little bit less or within your country or your continent, just needs to be made a bit more locally.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think we can go to the second part of our episode now.
Yeah.
That was like a brand review, different, I guess you could call them case studies. And now we're just going to get into, to kind of close the series, how to build a wardrobe.
Yeah.
And we're both experts at that.
Yeah, we both have a wardrobe.
I'm wearing a fish shirt right now.
I'm wearing 2 sweaters.
And a blanket.
And a blanket. We're in Aaron's garage.
Where did you want to start with this enterprise?
So let's just start with talking about what are clothes. They're there to protect us from the elements.
Yeah, express our individuality.
And to keep us comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we forget that. And we're wearing skirts in winter. I don't know. Just like clothes are there, first of all, to keep you safe and warm. And I feel like maybe they need to be made more practically.
Well, it's this thing about luxury products. Like clothes right now, like fashion is the luxury thing. Mm-hmm. Think about someone says, I'm going shopping. 9 times out of 10, they mean for clothes.
Yeah.
I'm remembering the image of like sneakerheads wearing whatever the shoe is in the rain, and they have plastic bags around them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that's the exact opposite point of a shoe.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be to keep your feet dry.
Yes.
And protected. Exactly.
Like I always am blown away that shoes aren't waterproof and stuff like that. And it's just like a lot of my clothes I wouldn't wear doing anything. I would just wear them to school or to an office job. But if I was going to my actual job, working at this museum where I'd be like picking up oysters and painting stuff and...
What are you going on about? Your actual job at a museum where you're picking up oysters and painting?
I mean, okay. My museum had no clients this summer. We were just doing maintenance and stuff.
Oh, you're... okay.
Yeah, my summer job.
I was like, what museum are you...
A lot of maintenance and stuff. I'm not going to wear my nice jeans and t-shirt. I'm going to wear my like scrappy clothes.
Is this when you mentioned your frock? Yeah.
This is what I mean, like, clothes just need to be made to be able to endure stuff and be like, you shouldn't have to change clothes throughout the day. You should be able to wear your frock. It's not, frock isn't the right word, smock.
Oh, I always mix those up.
Smock. I think we need to bring smocks back, but that, I talked about that a lot more in the first episode. But I just mean, like, clothes should be versatile and, like, easy to not easy to clean. Yeah, like they shouldn't stain so easily or like tear so easily. Like just make them so you can get them absolutely filthy. Scratch around on the cement.
I think it's more like there shouldn't be, like, no one's imparted this onto us. Companies haven't done this. I mean, they have a little bit, but it's just, I think, been a function of the way society's gone and industrialization more than anything. No one gets dirty anymore.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be this absolute standard of absolute cleanliness.
Yeah.
So you say like clothes they shouldn't stain so easily. I think it's more like stains shouldn't be so like ridiculed. Like it shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's like no one, if you're dressing up, you should try and wear nice clothes, but there shouldn't be this like ostracizing of someone who has like a grass stain.
Yeah. Just
And
like
we do that to ourselves. I mean,
we do.
Like I do that to other people. You do that to other people. Like we're all part of it. I think it's something that we actively need to kind of reject.
Yeah.
And change that paradigm. I think it's doable though.
I think so. And like normalize mending, normalize having patches.
Normalize this, normalize that.
That's why I said that, but then I was like, no one's gonna get that. Anyway, so I just think make clothes more practical.
Yes.
But still, obviously, you can express yourself. Like you can pick the colors of your jeans or whatever, but just don't worry if they get a tear in them. Stitch it up.
Wear them.
Wear them.
My one piece of
Love
fashion.
them. Love them.
My one piece of fashion advice, which I remember hearing about clothes. I don't know too much about clothes, but it's you wear the clothes don't wear you.
Yeah.
I think I've said that before, but I think that's important.
Yeah,
because when people are like head to toe in a single brand, like the clothes are wearing them.
Yeah.
You need to wear the clothes. You need to fill those clothes. You need to take up space.
Yeah, they need to define you, not in the brands they are, but in the story they tell.
The story they tell.
Yeah.
That's well said. So I mentioned practicality in my notes, but also in the fact that, as we said with Patagonia, they're dressing people for a certain type of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think clothes are the way they are now because people aren't like running around or working physically very often.
I think it's a feedback loop though.
I know. But I'm just saying, like, if you get people out of the office, the clothes will become more kind of rugged.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because you always dress in a way that you could go to the gym, go for a hike, but also like you could go to the store, go to a class, whatever. But I have like very different sets of clothing for that. I don't like that about myself.
No, most people do, I think.
Yeah.
It's only because I'm so lazy.
You're practical.
You could say it like that.
And it's also fashionable.
Thank you.
Like all the time, no matter where he is. That's one of the first things I noticed about you.
Really?
Yeah.
I only had like 6 clothes when you met me.
Yes, you had about 6 clothes. But I was like, what a fashion.
What a fashion.
Aaron, he just always looks good because he's confident in his clothes and they like tell a story about him.
So it's this thing about getting out of the office and the clothes will change accordingly. Mm-hmm. And also, we live in Nova Scotia. There's very differing seasons throughout the year.
Yeah.
There are many places where you can just dress the same throughout the year. Here we can't. So I remember when we lived on our campus residence, which was about an hour and a half away from your home.
Yeah.
You'd have like seasonal wardrobe change, right?
Yes.
There'd be a time maybe around now actually probably.
Yeah.
When you'd like go home and pick up all your winter clothes.
Yeah.
So I think that's necessary. I think that's often neglected or ignored when people talk about, we haven't mentioned the word yet, but minimalism. Like minimalist wardrobes is kind of a big thing, right? It's like how many clothes can you not have? How few clothes can you own?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean, you need different clothes for different seasons. That's something I've always thought. But maybe it's just about having fewer clothes for those seasons. Maybe how many coats do you need is the question. Yeah.
There's this minimalist that I follow on YouTube. She's lovely. And she lives in Western Australia.
Give her a shout out.
A small wardrobe. I just subscribed to her Patreon today because I was like, I need to start supporting like creators because someday I hope to be supported as well. So anyway, she's lovely. And she lives in Western Australia, so the winter and summer aren't that different. Like if we were there in the winter, we'd be wearing bathing suits probably.
Okay.
But she still even has she owns 18 things and still has things that she puts in storage for the winter and takes out for the summer.
Yeah.
She tries to make it very interseasonal, but it's you can't wear your your winter coat in the summer.
Hot clothes? Are you about to call them that?
Hot coat.
Hot
That's what
coat. I was going to say. One word which came to mind when I thought about this thing about practicality, and you just mentioned my clothes, wearing the same clothes to different areas, was the rise in the last decade of athleisure.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, right?
Yes.
Which is like, hey, people wearing sporty clothes everywhere now. People wearing yoga pants to class. People wearing running shoes to the office.
To the wedding sometimes.
Like me.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I think that's a good thing. There's definitely something to be said for dressing up and like taking clothes seriously, taking board meetings seriously, things like that. Yeah. That was what I was so vehemently against when we first met, with several impassioned rants about formal clothing.
Indeed.
I've kind of mellowed out when it comes to that now, but I still think what athleisure stands for is probably a net good.
I think so.
It kind of demystifies places like the red carpet, like the office.
Yeah, it makes it more accessible. Like, comfort is good.
Yeah.
In your clothing, but I think we need to...
But it's something about practicality, you know what I mean? Yeah, like, it was prioritizing for one's comfort, flexibility over the formal dress code.
Yes, indeed. I think another important part of building your wardrobe is discovering your personal style. We talked about that a lot in the first episode, but it's like having this set of colors, cuts, etc. that you're confident in and make you feel your best. They suit your lifestyle, so that you can invest in clothes and like not have to worry about changing with the seasons, because you have this style which suits you for like years at a time.
That's true. It definitely makes you kind of less worried about spending a lot on a t-shirt if you know you'll like it, and if you know that it will pair well with things that you have.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of silly, but it's true. I mean, money's like important, so you don't want to waste it.
I think so. Yeah.
Talking about this practicality reminds me of a previous episode we did in our series where we designed the ideal city. Yeah. We had an episode about buildings, and we devoted a section of the episode to discussing the ideal architecture of a city, and we couldn't kind of talk indefinites about this style is better than this style. So we ended up just saying the ideal buildings are kind of all sustainable and made in a way which is suited to that building, to that town's
cultural and
culture and
identity
and climate.
Yeah.
And fashion seems to me the same way.
Yeah.
So we said that the architecture in the end would kind of be a function of that.
Yes.
Like, it's like form follows function. It would stem kind of naturally from that. So it would be probably place an emphasis on the materials, on the construction, and I think that fashion could be similar. I see that in the rise in things like natural dyes. It's kind of postmodern when you think about it. It's kind of like looking in at the thing and focusing on the form rather than focusing on the construction rather than any like design placed on top of that. Yeah. One way that I think this kind of manifests I'll say incorrectly, or like in a way which is maybe not so good, is when you see like Off-White and brands which, you know, like when huge brands do that in a way which is kind of ironic.
Yeah, I suppose.
It'll say like quote unquote shirt.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's kind of like a superficial reading of it, I think. A more meaningful manifestation of this is just like a natural dyed shirt. Yeah. Yeah. Local materials. You mentioned this with kilts. Yes. In episode 1 about how the
dyes were from local plants, and that was how you knew where the clan was from.
Yeah, local materials, local dyes, and the practicality of certain places. So like our clothes would probably be heavier than a lot of other places, or maybe they'd be more aquatic or things like that. Yeah.
Time for bed, Aaron.
So yeah, that serves to kind of make things more sustainable. It degrows it, and it also localizes the culture a little bit more.
Yeah. One more thing I want to mention about your wardrobe is like maybe try and personalize some of your things. Oh. Because you can learn to like embroider pretty easily. I did that in one day. I made Aaron a nice floral shirt. But also like swap out the buttons and then give the buttons to someone else to put on their sweater and like...
Or bleach it.
But just like customize your things, because then it's very unique to you. You'll want to wear it because you put in the time to customize it. And at the end of its life, when you're like, no, this doesn't fit me right anymore, you can give it to someone else who will be like, this is so great and you made it. Like,
You made it for me.
Yeah.
You're sewing yourself into every product. You're forging a spiritual connection with the garment. Sorry, I'm vibrating.
Someday we're gonna be like recording these, like
someday,
with video,
someday
and
we'll
people
have
are
cameras
like,
and people will see
you'll understand
the
a bit
absolute
more.
energy
Because a lot of the
that
time we're
floats
not
across these
speaking, but we're
microphones.
just moving and trying to convey the message to you, but you can't see us.
It's a podcast performed through dance.
Basically.
But
I said there was going to be song today, and there basically is. Okay.
Did you say there was going to be song?
Yeah. There's no song. Sorry.
I think that about sums it up.
Cool.
Did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
I'm going to just finish up with end of life stuff.
Okay.
So last week I was talking a bit about like I often feel like I'll just donate my clothes, but don't think about where I'm donating them to. Don't look into the organization I'm donating them to. So I'll just encourage people either give them away, sell them. The best thing to do is mend them or just like repurpose them. Try and squeeze the most out of them, even if they go out of style. Like I'm preaching to myself because I have a big wardrobe, because I hold on to things because I'm like, hopefully this will come back into style, or like I'll just renew my passion for it, or be able to mend it someday.
Renew your passion for it, huh?
Yeah. But just like hold on to them, keep them as long as you can, repurpose them, make them into a pillow, whatever. Next best thing is to like borrow something from someone, to like try and renew it, swap it, and then donate it to somewhere good, like a women's shelter or something. Don't just like give it to Value Village, even though I love Value Village. Anyway.
You should mention Value Village is the huge thrift chain, basically.
Yeah.
Not even like a localized secondhand store. Like it's a chain. Is that across Canada, across North America?
It's across at least Canada.
Yeah.
The United States have other ones. It's like wear something.
Goodwill,
yeah.
It's kind of like the Canadian Goodwill then.
Yeah. Anyway, just don't throw it to Goodwill or Value Village. Like, try and know where it is at all times. I think I said that last week. And always try and like renew it.
Reduce, reuse, repair, recycle, recover, dispose as a last resort.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah. I'm so excited with this. I'm going to make so many Instagram posts this week to share the resources and my passion with people. Maybe that's where the interpretive dance will go. Haven't worked it all out yet.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you did and you haven't listened to the rest of our series, please go back and listen to the last 3 episodes, because you'll probably enjoy them. And if you enjoyed those, listen to everything. And also check us out on Instagram at @_environmental, where we'll be posting our fashion related inspiration and thoughts, and maybe some interpretive dance.
Thank you all for listening. Bye.